The rains ended at last, the sky cleared, new leaves appeared on the trees, jasmine and other fragrant flowers bloomed. With brighter surroundings, Rama's spirit also quickened. Now he could move out of his ashram and act positively. With the end of the rainy season, nature's traffic resumed on air, land, air, and water. Flocks of swans crossed the sky, cranes and aquatic birds flew by, a variety of fishes newly spawned darted under the water surfaces. Lotus was in bloom, frogs which had croaked themselves hoarse in unison all through the wet days now were silent. Peacocks came out into the sun, shaking off cloaking droplets of water and fanning out their tails brilliantly. Rivers which had roared and overflowed now retraced their modest courses and tamely ended the sea. Arca, Arca palms ripened their fruits in golden bunches. Crocodiles emerged from the depths, crawling over the rocks to bask in the sun. Snails vanished under the slush, and crabs slipped back underground. That rare creeper known as Bonji suddenly burst into bloom with chattering parrots perched on its slender branches. All this minutely noted by Rama as indicated a definite change of season and a reminder that Sugriva had failed to keep his promise to arrive with an army. He said to Lakshmana, "Does it not seem that Sugriva has exceeded the 4-month limit? Do you think he is asleep? With our help, he has acquired a mighty kingdom to rule, but he has forgotten us." One who had snapped all ties of friendship, swerved from truth, and acted false, deserves to be caught a lesson. And if he is killed in the process, we could not be blamed. First of all, will you go and find out why he has defaulted, what has happened to him, and if he deserves to be punished? You will tell him that destroying evil is like destroying a poison insect, and we will not be violating any code of conduct. You will explain with due clarity and impress it on the mind of one who does not seem to have known proper conduct, either at 5 years of age or at 50. Tell him that if he wishes to flourish as a ruler of Kishinda in the midst of his kingdoms and people, he must come first immediately with all the help he can to muster to search for Siddha. If he does not, we will not hesitate to destroy every monkey in this world so that the tribe will become unknown to future generations. In case he has found someone stronger than Rama or Lakshmana as his supporter, remind him that we could meet any challenge from anywhere. After relieving his mood and temper with these words, Rama probably felt that he had gone too far and might provoke Lakshmana to act violently. So he told him, "Now speak gently, do not show your anger, but let your explanations be clear and firm. If he does not accept the moral you indicate, do not lose your patience, but give him a careful hearing to whether he may have to say and bring me his reply." Properly armed, Lakshmana left immediately. He was overwhelmed with the seriousness of his mission, and his mind was fixed on reaching his destination in the shortest time possibly. He moved swiftly, looking neither to his left nor right. He avoided a familiar path leading to Kishinda, the old path trodden by them when Sugriva went forth to uncover valley. Now Lakshmana feeling uncertain about their relationship with Sugriva, took a different route. It was also a measure of precaution, as he did not wish to observe by Sugriva's spy. He reached Kishinda leaping along from crag to crag. Observers at the outposts went to Angada with the news of Lakshmana's arrival. Angana hastened out to meet him, but even from the distance understood that what temper he was in, and withdrew quietly. He rushed to Sugriva's palace, which has been designed and built by a master architect and was so gorgeous and comfortable that Sugriva hardly left it ever. His bedchamber was strewn with flowers, and he lay surrounded by beauties with long tresses and heavy breasts, who provided his comfort and sang and entertained him. The company of beautiful women with their dizzying perfumes and scent of flowers and rare incense, and above all much wine inhibited, left him in a daze of ecstasy. Sugriva lay inert, unmindful of the world outside. Angada softly entered, respectfully saluted his recumbent uncle, and whispered, "Listen to me, please. Rama's brother Lakshmana has come. In his face I see anger and urgency. What is your command to me now?" There was no response from Sugriva, as he gave no sign of comprehending his words. Angada left, went into search of Hunaman, consulted him, and took him along to meet his mother Tarish. He explained to his mother what had happened and appealed to her guidance. She lost her temper and cried, "You have all indulged in wrong acts without thinking of morality of the consequences. You gain your ends and then forget your responsibilities. You do not possess gratitude. I have dined into you again and again. That time has come to help Rama. But it seemed as if I were talking to a stone wall. Now you must suffer the consequences of your indifference. You do not realize how Rama is bearing up and how hard it must be for him to remain alive at all. You are all lost in pleasures. You are all selfish and ungrateful. You are prosperous with no thought of others. You now ask what you should do. You will all perish if you plan to wage a war on Rama and Lakshmana. What is there for me to advise you?" When she said this, the populace of Kasinda shut down and bottled the city gates and barricaded them with rocks and tree trunks. Lakshmana watched them, both irritated and amused, and then, with a push and a kick, shattered the blockade and flung the gates open. Great confusion ensued. The monkey populace fled into the neighboring forest, deserting the city. Lakshmana stepped majestically into the city and looked about. Angada and all others who stood surrounding Tara observed him from a distance, asked themselves anxiously, "What shall we do now?" At this moment, Hanuman consoled Tara. "Please move onto the threshold of the palace with your attendants. Lakshmana will not go past you. Otherwise, I dread to think what might happen if he rushes into the palace." "All of you now leave," Tara said, "and remain out of sight. I will go and face him." By the time Lakshmana has traversed the royal path and reached the palace, he heard the jingle of anklets and bracelets, looked up, and discovered an army of women approaching him with determination. Before he could decide whether he should retreat, he found himself encircled. He felt confused and embarrassed. He bowed his head, unable to face anyone, and stood downcast eyes, wondering what to do. Tara addressed him with courtesy. "We are honored and happy of your visit, but the manner of your coming has frightened us. Until we know what you have in mind, we will feel uneasy. Is there anything you wish to tell us?" she said sweetly. Lakshmana looked up at the glimpse of Tara's face, felt a sharp remembrance of his mother Sumitra and his stepmother Kasula. Uncomfortably, his eyes filled with tears. For a moment, he was assailed with sickness. He overcame it and said, I am sent by my brother to find out why Sugriva has held himself back, having promised to bring an army for our help. Tara replied, Don't let your anger turn on Sugriva. Great ones should give the lapse of small men. Anyway, Sugriva has not forgotten. He has sent messages to all his associates far and wide in order to mobilize an army, and he is waiting the return of the messengers, which is the only cause of delay. Please bear with us. We know that Rama's single arrow is enough to vanquish all enemies, and our help could not be nominal. On hearing these words, Lakshmana looked relieved, noticing a sign of good temper. Hanuman approached him cautiously. Hanuman, thank you. Him cautiously, and Lakshmana asked, Did you too forget yourself? Hanuman explained, My mind is always fixed on Rama, and there can be no forgetfulness. He spoke with such humility and serenity that Lakshmana's anger finally left him. He now explained Rama's suffering is deep. He needs Sugriva's help at this stage and fears that the longer he delays, the stronger the evildoers may grow. Hanuman said, Please step into the palace and give Sugriva a chance to receive you, sir. When you stand here refusing to enter, it gives a chance for our enemies to gossip and talk ill of us. Please forget the past and come in. Accepting the invitation, Lakshmana followed him into the palace and received by Angada, who immediately went in to announce his arrival to Sugriva. Meanwhile, Tara withdrew with her companions. Angada announced to Sugriva that Lakshmana was there, and explained in that his temper he had arrived and how the gates of the city fell with his touch. Sugriva listened in surprise and demanded to be told why no one had informed him of Lakshmana's arrival in a proper time. Angana replied gracefully, avoiding any direct charge. I came in several times and spoke. Perhaps you were asleep when I thought you were awake. You are very considerate in this way, Sugriva said, but I was drunk, and that made me forget my responsibility and promises. Wine snaps away one's energy, senses, judgment, and memory, and promises are lost sight of. One loses even the distinction between one's wife and mother. You are already born into a world of Maya, born in the state of complete self-delusion. We add to this state the further illusion that wine creates. No salvation for us. We turn a deaf ear to the advice of wise men and lessons they point out. And instead, just skim out the dirt and insects swimming in the fermented froth, quaff the drink and sink into oblivion. How can I face Lakshmana now? He brought it for a little while, and then declared, I hereby vow in the name of the most sacred Rama that I will never drink an intoxicant again. With the resolution he felt, after this resolution he felt braced up. I will now receive Lakshmana. Meanwhile, let all honors be properly presented to him, and let there be a public celebration in his honor. Angada busied himself to set the wheels in motion. By the time Sugriva, with his entourage, sallied forth to meet Lakshmana, the atmosphere had changed into one of festivity, with the public participating fully in the reception. Music, chantings, incense, flowers were everywhere, and Sugriva looked majestic. At this sight, Sugriva, Lakshmana's anger revived for a second, but he suppressed it resolutely, clasped Sugriva's hand, and entered into the palace. Sugriva pointed to the golden seat and invited Lakshmana to occupy it. Lakshmana merely said, Rama sits on bare ground. I do not need anything more than that. So saying, he has sat on bare floor, an act which saddened Sugriva and the others. Sugriva suggested, "Will you have a bath and partake of our repast?" Once Lakshmana said, "Rama lives on roots and greens, so do I. Every minute I delay here, he will be going without food. Immediately start a search for Sita, and that will be equal to giving me a holy bath in Ganga and offering me a dinner of ambrosia." Sugriva replied with great sorrow, "When Rama is suffering such privations, only a monkey like me can be lost in physical enjoyment. Forgive me." He turned next to Hanuman and said, "Our messengers have not arrived. When they return with the armies, bring them to Rama's ashram. Stay here until then. I will go now." He gathered his followers and proceeded to meet Rama, marching on the solemn silence, his mind full of guilt. But the moment he came face to face with Rama at his mountain retreat, Rama welcomed him with open arm and patted him on the back. "I hope you and your subjects are happy and flourishing." Sugriva replied, "For one who has received your grace, the achievements of kingship seem trivial and light." He felt unable to stop his speech and became passionately self critical. "I have failed in my duty and my promise, lost myself in pleasures. I have betrayed the limits of my monkey mind. I do not have the right to expect your forgiveness." "The rainy season was unexpectedly prolonged," Rama said, "and I knew that you must have been waiting for it to close. Now your speech indicates your determination to help, which makes me happy. I do not doubt your devotion, but you must not belittle yourself so much. Where is Hanuman? He will come presently with an army." "Now you may go," Rama said. "You must have other duties to perform. Come back when the armies are ready," Sugriva replied. "So be it. We shall decide on the details of our campaign later." After he left, Rama received from Lakshmana a full report of all that has been seen and heard during his mission to Kisinda. In due course, various units led by their commanders appeared in the valley. In order to get an idea of their numbers, Sugriva suggested that Rama stand at the height and watch, and ordered the commanders to parade their contingents one by one north to south. Rama's hopes revived as he watched the marchers disappear troop after troop into an enormous cloud of dust raised by their feet. He said to Lakshmana, "I try, but constantly lose count of the numbers. If we stand there and try to count, we will never reach the end of it, or have time left to search for Sita. Now that we have seen this army, I am confident of their ability to search and fight." He turned to Sugriva and said, "Now do not delay them into action." Sugriva calls up the commanders and allotted to each task in different directions. Hanuman and Angana were there to proceed southward, and that was the most important of assignments. Before Hanuman departed, Sugriva gave him detailed instructions as to how to search for Sita in each place they were traversing. "When you leave here, you will reach the cloud topping Binha mountain peaks," he continued. "Search for Sita in every nook and corner of that mountain range. Then you will cross the Narmada. In those cool waters, even the gods will be sporting." I'm going to stop there. 2:11. I'll be right back.